Hello. Let me swoop on down and see who's there. Woo. Hello. It's me, Thurston Owl the Third. I see that you are here for today's service. Well, today we start a brand new series called Campfire Stories. Who does not like to sit around a campfire telling exciting stories? Well, the Bible is filled with amazing, scary, and exciting stories that are more than just fun. They can teach us valuable lessons about God. Today, we look at the tale of the fiery furnace and the lessons that we can take away from it. Who's ready?
Good morning, everybody.
I'm excited. Today, we start our brand new series, Campfire Stories.
I love sitting around campfires, eating s'mores.
True. Each week, we're going to learn a different cool story from the Bible. A story you might tell around the campfire. Today, we're talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and we're going to learn that when you stand for God, God stands for you.
That's a crazy story. You know, how God protected the boys in the fiery furnace? You know, kids, you should never play with fire, and be careful and don't play with matches either.
Good points, Bazuba.
Huh. It's like my Uncle Smokey says.
Wait, Smokey the Bear is your uncle? I met him once.
Nah, same name, just different bear. My uncle had gray fur, just like in your beard. Oh, yeah.
How many of you guys are brave enough to camp in the woods by yourself? If we set this tent up in your backyard, would you be brave enough to sleep in it all night long? What if we moved the tent to the woods, away from your house or any houses, far from any place with electricity, running water, or cell service? Would you want to go? Would anybody be brave enough to go alone? Now, let me ask you this. What if your mom or dad went with you? If your parents came along, would you be willing to stay in the tent? The tent is big enough for two, isn't it? And having a mom or dad or someone older you know and trust makes a big difference. It gives you courage to sleep alone in the dark because you know someone who loves you is there to protect you. That's why the three boys in today's story were not afraid of the fiery furnace. They weren't afraid because they knew God was with them and God would protect them. Don't be afraid to stand up for God. You won't be alone. God will be with you anytime you take a stand for Him.
Hey, my name is Tanner, and we're going to play a game called Name That Animal. Have you ever been camping with your family? And sometimes as you're sitting around the campfire or you're laying nice and cozy in your tent and you hear these noises around you, made from all sorts of different animals out there in the woods. Well, in this game today, we are going to play an animal noise, and you are going to try to guess which animal is making that sound. You ready? So for the first animal on the list, is this sound a hawk, an owl, or a T-Rex? Did you guess? Wait, there's an owl? I thought it was a T-Rex. All right, anyways, first one's owl. If you guessed that, you're right. Now on to our second sound. Is this a bat, a frog, or a bunch of locusts? If you guessed frog, you were correct. Now, for the third sound, starting to get a little trickier. Is this a loon, a badger, or a wolf? If you guessed loon, you are correct. You guys even know what a loon is? I don't. Go ahead and Google it after the service. All right, fourth animal. Who's 3 for 3? 3 for 3, good job. Next up, we have a beaver, a bear, or a mountain. This was Yogi himself, a bear.
Hey, boo-boo.
All right, fifth animal coming up. We have raccoon, prairie dog, or a chipmunk? If you guessed raccoon, you are correct. All right, next animal. We have a squirrel, a groundhog, or an otter himself. All right, it was a squirrel. They're everywhere. You guys should have gotten that one easy. All right, what is the seventh animal? All right, we have a coyote, a wolf, or a moose. That was a wolf. Probably one of the third easiest on this list. So, third to last animal, we have a bobcat, your local pet, a dog, or a fox. Which is... Alright, that one was a fox. Follow-up question. What does the fox say? If you know that, congratulations. Alright, second to last one, we have a mole, a deer, or a rabbit. That one was Bambi herself, a deer. Final one, let's see if you guys can go 100%. We have a porcupine, a possum, and a skunk. That one was Smelly Sarah herself, the skunk. Good job. How many did you guys get correct? If you got all, congrats, you really know your animals. Tune in next week where we play the same game, but we do it with exotic animals, such as lions, tigers, and...
Oh my!
All right, everybody, it is time to memorize our Bible verse for this series. And because it's a brand new series, it's a brand new Bible verse. And luckily for you, it's a short Bible verse. So memorize this verse and send me a video on Facebook, email, text it to me, or show up at my doorstep and recite this verse for me, and you could win a box of cereal. All right, even though this verse is short, we're still going to do some motions to help you remember this verse. All right, here's how it goes. It says, "My children, come, listen to me. I will teach you to have respect for the Lord." And that comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 11. Memorize that verse.
Amazing grace, how can it be? The King of Kings is here with me. From the highest heights to the valley low, I know you're never gonna let me go. Every day you're with me every way. Every day you're with me. No matter what comes my way, I know that you're here to stay. Every day you're with me. I once was lost, but now I see. The King of Kings is here with me. You're here with me. Walking through the combat zone. I know that I am not alone. Every day you're with me every way. Every day you're with me. No matter what comes my way, I know that you're here to stay. Every day you're with me.
Today marks the beginning of an exciting new series. It's a series filled with some thrilling stories, the kind of stories that people like to tell sitting around a campfire. Camping is a great time for telling stories of adventures and ghosts and things that go bump in the night. But the stories we're going to read all can be found in the Bible. Now, many people have a mistaken idea that the Bible is boring. They think the Bible is just a bunch of rules and poems and lists of things. But the Bible is so much more than that. The Bible is God's Word, and most of that Word is filled with stories. And many of the stories might be new to you, but today we're going to start with a story that I'm sure you've heard of before, and it's the tale of the fiery furnace. The tale of the fiery furnace comes in the middle of the Old Testament. And just to kind of give you some background, in the big picture of the Old Testament, the story takes place after the nation of Israel, God's chosen people, have disobeyed God. And so God punishes his people by letting them be captured and sending them into exile. And so Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king of Babylon, captures their country and took all the people of Israel from their homeland to his country. Now, some of the young men from Israel were taken to the king's palace, including a boy named Daniel and 3 friends named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These boys were living in a foreign land and working for people who did not believe in God. And every day their faith was challenged to take a stand for God, but never more so than in today's story. You see, King Nebuchadnezzar thought himself to be a god. He thought he was pretty awesome. He thought he was special, and so he made a giant statue for everybody to worship. And people had to worship this statue. Anyone who didn't, anyone who disobeyed, would be severely punished. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew they had a terrible choice that had to be made. Either bow down and worship a false god, which they knew they shouldn't do, or be thrown into a fiery furnace, which of course they would rather not happen. Check out the story that comes to us from Daniel, chapter 3, verses 8 to 30.
At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You have issued a decree, O king, that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve your gods nor worship your image of gold you've set up." Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar told them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the images I've made, very good. But if you do not worship, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we're thrown into a blazing furnace, then the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship an image of gold you've set up for us." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's commands was so urgent that the furnace was so hot the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, O king." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, and governors and royal advisers crowded around them. They saw the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own. Therefore I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had some enemies. And these men went straight to the king and tattled on them, saying, "Well, those boys from Israel won't bow down to your idol. Remember what you said? Remember that you said that anyone who doesn't worship the idol has to be thrown into the fiery furnace?" Well, the king was angry. He was furious. And so he was true to his word. He had them thrown into the fiery furnace. Now, this was no ordinary furnace like you'd find in your basement or in your home. This was a large building with a fire so hot that the flames killed the soldiers who were in charge of throwing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fire. That's how hot it was. It was so hot that the people outside the furnace died, yet Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got shoved into this furnace. But the fire didn't harm the boys. In fact, when Nebuchadnezzar looked inside, he didn't see 3 men, he saw 4. Now, we don't know if that 4th person was God or an angel or even Jesus. But the young men were spared because God was with them. And God will always be with his people when they stand up for him. Whether it's in the court of kings or on the school playground, God will stand with us when we stand for him. It's not so easy to stand up for God sometimes. And true, we don't have the threat of an angry king or the fiery furnace that we have to worry about, but there are things that stand in our way. Peer pressure is one of them. When all the kids in school are telling you to do the wrong thing, it's hard to stand up and do what's right. When everyone says that something we know is wrong is okay, it's hard to speak up and tell the truth. Many times when people stand up for the right thing, it can get pretty ugly when people disagree with them. There are people just like the men who tattled on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego who will come after you and try to make you do the wrong thing as well. It's not uncommon for people to bully other people into believing the way they do, especially about religion. It happens with kids and it happens with adults. I mean, ask anybody who's been on Facebook, and they can tell you how ugly things can get when someone dares speak up against the crowd and stand up for what's right. It may not be easy to stand up against everybody else, but it's still the right thing to do. We can find the courage to take a stand because we know that God will stand with us. God did not abandon Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego when they were tossed in that fiery furnace. He went into the fire with them. And God will be with us on the playground, or online, or in the classroom, or at home, or any place we go. He will stand with us, and he will give us the courage to keep standing. God needs us to take a stand and to speak the truth. He needs us to be the light, to show people what is right, even when no one else will stand up with us. Don't be afraid to take a stand for Jesus. When you stand up for God, you never stand alone. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you back here next week. All right, here we are at the end of our service, and we're going to do something different for the next 8 weeks. At the end of each week, we're going to be given a digital badge if you watch the service, and I want to see how many of these badges that you can collect after our 8-week series. Today's badge looks like this. Can you guess why?